I'm just searching for a station. Just got a shopping station, no. Christian evangelical, no. Russian parliamentary transcriptions, no. Alright, here we go. I'm going to keep reading. Do you mind? It will inspire me. I'm not saying you don't inspire me, but it will. Where was I? So, I'll start with this, the point where it is enough that one surrender oneself. Surrender is to give oneself up. Now, when you give oneself up, that's not giving you up. Yeah? You're giving over what you're not. You're turning that over. If you have that tendency of mind that it works, it works. Yeah? So you turn yourself over, as the simple statement would be, thy will be done, basically. So if you have trouble, or there seems to be a lot of guilt and shame around what you've omitted or committed in one's life, this may be the best way to sort of get relief from that, is through surrendering that over to the care of a power greater than self. Not a power greater than you, because you are that power, but a power greater than self. So it's sort of like you can't meet yourself where you are yet, so you create this little intermediary of a higher power so that you can surrender it to, and then after it happens you realize it was you all along. But at the point where you're at, you may not be able to entertain. You could possibly be what you're looking for, so you have like an idea about what it is or whatever, and then you surrender to that. And then you just look at how it goes for a while, and it tends to see, I found I'm not managerial quality. Yeah? So when I attempt to manage my life, I always manage myself into a position of having to be managed by other people. That's what happened to me. I was institutionalized or jailed many times. Yeah? So when I was out there managing my own life, I'd always manage myself to the point where other people had to manage me. Yeah? Now AA allowed me to become a free-range alcoholic. I got freed from that dilemma of constantly parking at institution jails and death, you know what I mean? And with a lot of parking tickets on the window, institution jails and death. And then something happened that no human power could do. I started to be able to live a day at a time for like 28 years without having to be supervised. So this is sort of what the idea of surrender is. So a lot of people who have an addiction, and there is the mental state's addiction to the idea of being a self. To me, that's the primary addiction. What I think alcoholism is really, it's an adjunct or an addition to self-centeredness, and it just amplifies it. So it takes like an acoustic guitar and it makes it electric. Yeah? So let's say if you have tendencies to be jealous, then you drink and use, you're up on stalking charges in a few months. Yes? Things get amplified. All those possibilities that seem to be somewhat there but not too troublesome become very, very evident and very, very troublesome. Because in a way, what I find this event is, of being seemingly a body, a lot of mental winds come around, and they're wanting to make a note, and they have to blow through a flute. So they blow through this body, and we all have our little, the hole placements are a little distance. So the one breath, this one mental breath, finds a lot of expression through the different flutes it blows through. So when you see greed, like if you've ever seen the Tibetan, it's a teaching aid. It's a mandala of the wheel of life. So you have, and there's something holding it, which is the deity of death, the Yama. So there's death's holding this whole wheel of life, and it'll tell you sort of how things go here. Yeah? There's the identification as the body. The body gets like an arrow in its eye. You can't really see what's going on, and all this stuff happens. And in the inner part of the whole thing, there's three animals. Usually there's a rooster, a pig, and maybe a snake. And I think they represent envy, malice, and greed. So envy, malice, and greed are three major mental winds that blow here in this manifestation. So you see a lot of greed, but then we tend to put it on the person, but the person is just a vehicle. Well, that person is not greedy. There's greed moving through that person in a sense. Yeah, because there is no person. So greed comes through, finds its expression, and it has the perfect hiding place right out in the open, because we're identified as self, whatever comes through us, we think it's us. Yeah? Whatever motivates your behavior, you think it was your behavior. Even like in recovery, we have a first step in recovery that this is the one you have to do perfectly, which is you admit that you were powerless over alcohol, drugs, or let's say sex or shopping, whatever it may be. You admit that you were powerless over it, and sort of the idea of powerlessness is like you're dancing with a gorilla and you're going to stop when it wants to stop. Yeah? You don't really have any say in what's going on. Yeah? This thing has taken you over. To me, alcoholism is like a parasitical movement, mental movement. It takes you over and it uses you for transportation. And so it expresses itself through you, but because the identification in self as self is in place, you claim all of its expressions as yours. Yeah? So when fear is affect the way you're perceiving has been hijacked and you're seeing things in a fearful manner, you call it my fear, when it has nothing to do with you. There's no you to have anything to do with. It's just fear finding an opportunity to express. And it finds it through us. Yeah? Greed, the same thing. Malice, the same thing. Hate, the same thing. Love, the same thing. There's all these winds blowing, and they find expression through the flutes that we provide. Yeah? So it's the same breath, but it hits many notes. It gets translated into zillions of different notes. And yet we attribute all the songs to the flute, but the flute has nothing to do with it. The flute is just the conveyance, or the vehicle, yeah? It's the faculty. It's like what's watering the garden isn't the hose, it's the water. The hose is used to direct the water to the plants so that they get fed. But it's not the hose that's watering the plants. Yeah? It's water. Yeah? So this description is they're trying to say about what happens here. And these are three of the dominant winds in manifestation. And you look at the world and you can see greed seems to be a huge drive, isn't it? Then there's envy and malice of what we think are different, either different people because of their color or their skin or something like that. And then it just amplifies and magnifies here because there's a lot of space and time to do it in. Yeah. That's what this place is. You have to have space to see something, and you have to have time to see it. So time and space aren't things, they're parts of the dream. Yeah? They're as much as us as anything else. What we are is the dreaming. Time and space aren't real things that are lording over on us. How could we even possibly entertain that when if you're doing something you like, time seems to go really fast? If you're doing something you don't like, it seems to go really slow. If time was an object and a real object, it would be the same time. But it isn't. It's part and parcel of the dream. There's a great old guy who passed away, Wei Wu Wei. He's a strange old Irish dude. He wrote some very arcane, conceptual books, but he's pretty trippy. And he's always talking about time. Yeah? If you don't see the illusionary quality of time, it doesn't... You have to own it. You have to see it, that time is our making, of our own making, yes? Time is part and parcel of the dreaming. And you need time to see things. You wouldn't see anything without any time, and there would be no place for a thing to appear but without space. So time and space are prerequisites for the dreaming. Yeah? They're just as much as the thoughts. They're just as illusory as the thoughts. They're just as illusory as everything. Things are happening, but they're not happening to any specific you. Like someone asked me earlier, do I get angry? And the cliche non-duality answer is, well, there's no me to get angry. It's corny, but in fact that's the truth. But anger arises, preferences occur, There's sadness that comes in, there's anxiety, well, not much anxiety, there's excitement, there's this and that, but it's not issuing forth from anyone, and it's not being had by anyone. It doesn't mean the manifestation goes on quite well without us having anything to do with it, because we have nothing to do with it, except the seeing of it, yeah? It has to be seen to appear, and we're the only reality there is. We're the only reality. Everything comes into existence through our viewing it. They do the studies in physics where they used to study light at first. So they'd have a research team and they'd been given a great big grant, and their research grant was to see light as particles. What do they see it as? Particles. Then there's another research team, they're paid to see light as waves, and they see it as waves. It's almost as if the light dances to the observer. Yeah? Because it does. You and I give everything all the meaning it has. There's not choice there. There's no randomness. You and I give everything the meaning it has. We believe we're giving the meaning, but we're not. This has been given a meaning. The mind, the mental state is offering this meaning to the mind, which is, this is you, bro. You're the body. And you know what? I know it's so hard to believe, but I'm going to repeat it incessantly. I've got this little thing called a thought system that maybe you're a house painter and you only need like 12 thoughts for the whole day. You're only usually going to be confronted with a ceiling and walls, very easy maybe to think about where to eat and this, or, put the lid on the paint. But you're going to have thousands of thoughts every day, flooding through thousands of them. And they're going to be doing something that you're going to be unaware of. I don't want to tell you, but it's going to be a real beautiful surprise for you. It's going to keep whispering and inferring and implying and assuming and insinuating that there's a you. And you're going to be owning all these thoughts, and you know what's going to happen? Just give it a little time. They're going to own you. Oh, what? Oh, yeah, I didn't tell you that part. I only tell you you're the thinker, but I don't say you're going to be owned by the thoughts. Oh, fuck, I didn't like that deal. I know, it's too late. You better have a drink. You better watch Die Hard 8 for the 5th time. You better stay busy because I'm going to rip you a new one. Every day because I like to. And you know what? You're going to want to get out of it so much, and you're going to try to think yourself out of it. And I'm going to have a field day. I'm just going to be laughing all the way to the temple, all the way to the meditation retreat, all the way to the purification center. I'm just going to be all underneath the anointment. I'm going to be laughing. After the ritual's over, I'm going to be laughing. I'll have a stoic, very loving gaze look, but I'm just laughing inside. Because you know what? I'm going to go home and go over it. I'm going to go over how you didn't really stay long enough at that meditation center. That, you looked at that girl walk by. You lost your serenity right there and then. I told you then, and I'm telling you now. And you know what? You can't go back. That retreat's not coming back for another year. Fuck, you're stuck, bro. I'd say go home, sit in your room and think about it and see what you should do about it. Spawn 50 more of me. Come on, just think and think yourself out of thinking. There's a giant axiom hanging over. Self can't get out of self. How can a product of a mental system leave the system that produces it? Wherever you go, there you are. I used to have these things where you'd have like a realization, and like to a bigger aperture, yeah? You were seeing more. And so you would see more, and then it would be really, really cool, and then there would be a christening of the event as yours, yeah? So the mental state would say, oh, fuck, I'm really seeing a lot, And then suddenly, there it went, yes? And then another one happens, and then you see that which was looking isn't you. And wow, I can't believe I'm getting close to my authentic self. That's not it. And then, then what happened, it was revealed about 8 times in my life, and then I got it. I got that it was always going to arise an attempt to claim what isn't its. It's always going to herald that it's the one that's seeing, which it isn't true. So I didn't have to go through any more experiences. I got the whole nut of it. Yeah? I saw the whole ocean in that one drop. All you need is one little bit of selfing to see the whole theme. All you need to do is see one movement of it claiming what it has nothing to do with to know that's its theme. You don't need to have tons of experiences of it. One can do it. One can open your mind. So when something happens, and then that other reaction to it tries to arise, let it arise, but you're not with it. You're still the seeing. You're still the seeing. You're still the seeing. You're still the seeing. You never become the seer. And that sense that was just here in that room, that's what it's like. Like an infinite pause. An eternal moment. Because in seeing no thing, it never lands on anything. It just keeps seeing. Yeah? There's never an end to yourself, to what you are. So it never comes to the end of seeing. There's just seeing. Day in and day out, month in and month out, year in and year out, situation in, situations out, physical conditions in, physical conditions out. Nothing moves it, nothing deters it, nothing makes it blink, nothing has any effect on it whatsoever. You find rest there. You find rest in that incessant movement. That's where the stillness really lies. And what's always moving is perfectly still. What's always moving is perfectly still. You find some rest. I mean, finally, real rest, where it's better than 50 Thai massages. You get it. It feels like you drop. Everything looks exactly the same, but it ain't the same. Yeah, you just drop. The whole camera, everything drops. It looks like the same view, but it's different. Yeah? You have now had the sense of being what you are, and then you can see what you're not. And with a little bit of information about how what you're not appears, you'll be able to recognize it easier. You recognize it arise, the first hit, the default mechanism now is I'm not that. Yeah? Before any shenanigans can get any footing, before you're in the fucking mental house bemoaning that you have a long-term lease and the rent's too high and I spent all this money on the furniture, you've seen it in the blueprint room, you didn't go with the plan, and you never were in the house. The solution is prior to the problem. The freedom is prior to the bondage. It's an inherent state, always available at all times, right where you are, with no thing necessary to meet it. You're way past or way before the point of meeting anything. It's in seeing what you're not that becomes obvious. Looking for it will blind you to it. You'll be so busily looking, and the looking will have to be conceptualized because the mind at that point is already seemingly split. It can't see a fucking thing. So you see that, and you see that, and you see that, and all of the information about it distills into one thing. I'm not that. Yeah? Whatever that's implying, I'm not that. Whatever that's assuming, I'm not that. Whatever that's inferring, I'm not that. Whatever that's pointing to, I'm not, which is what's being pointed at. There's nothing there, and that's what I am. I am the nothing that is always there. Yeah? I pay dues that the body owes. I do this, I do that. But that's called, they're really called, it's at the level of non-action, which doesn't mean no action. It means action done without the sense of being the doer of it. It's sort of like spontaneous. It's sort of like nothing planned, it just shows up. It's like you're on a need-to-know basis on a giant dance floor, and you get to know exactly when you're supposed to lift your foot, and then there's something there when you put it down. So the action isn't being used to bond you to the idea of being the actor anymore. You don't have to limit your fucking affairs. You don't have to stop, I'm going to do nothing. That's an action, yeah? You follow your seat assignment. You do the mission that's there, yes? And yet you can continually I can continually show up these meetings because I've never shown up. If it was me doing this, I would have found a reason not to come back. I would have collected the money first, but I wouldn't have come back. Literally. How could I come to Toronto? There's no fucking way I would have decided to come here. Shit, I came here on the coldest day of the year the first time I came to Toronto. I had 364 other days to come to Toronto. I come in January for the first set of talks. Who the hell would do that in their right mind? It was the coldest day. The guy had to have a parka for me because my cold jacket wasn't sufficient. And I didn't want to even breathe. It was so cold, it hurt my lung. I was like, I'm refusing to fucking breathe. It's fucking too cold. I swear, you know that first thing? It's like, that's fucking cold. Shit. You know, who the hell in their right mind would come here in January? I wasn't in my right mind. I was in mind. And that was the seat assignment. I showed up and it all works out. That's all my job is. My job basically is to hold the space. That's all it is. Yeah? Just show up and see what happens. It's such a love affair when it's like that. It's alive, you know? Because your reliance on it looks very unsure in a sense. Because you're not planning. Like we do not plan these talks. We joke around it, we just don't have it. We don't have a get-ready room that I go to 2 hours before that's full of like lilies with nice scents. And, I get better food than you just got at that market. No. You arrive here like a minute late or something. Because I don't sit here and have to breathe myself into being here. I'm here already. A preparation would be a mistake, to tell you the truth. It would be relying on something else than having faith in mind. Faith in mind allows you to walk into anywhere. In what your mental state would warn you as being unprepared, and be totally utilized for an event. Over and over and over again. That's why I have faith in mind. I have faith. That's why we don't do intensives and retreats. Because I don't think it's necessary. I think you are that which we're attempting to imply. You know how much we fall for what isn't actually so? But this is so. And I believe if it just gets in there, if it gets delivered, the mind does the rest. If you go home and entertain it, not think about it, but entertain it, some stuff will have landed. Some stuff will already be cooking. And then you'll find its effects bleeding like from behind the canvas. You won't see it coming at you. It'll change what's seen coming. Yeah. Like a thief in the night, like Jesus said. You'll wake up and a lot will be missing, but you'll be happy for it. Yeah. Like a thief in the night, the kingdom of heaven will come. When you least expect it, because it's already there. It's like when I stayed at my friend Rob's house, I thought he lives with his in-laws. I thought they were away. They were there the whole time. They were just asleep. So I spent a whole lifetime in their house, and they didn't even notice, because they got up to go to work before I got up, and we left the next day before they got home. It was weird. And he said, oh yeah, they've been home the whole time. I said, what? Oh yeah. You know, it just seemed strange to me. I didn't see them. They own the house and everything like that. You know, I was like, oh, that's fucking weird. I could probably do it at a lot of houses already. That's a good idea. I could go there, maybe after their bedtime, sleep, but get up before they wake, you know, and leave, and no one would be the wiser. I could go to Toronto, and that budget would be gone. I could use that money for lattes and shit. It just seemed weird, it did. Like the people, you know, I never met them. Oh, no, they've been home the whole day. I said, what, really? Oh, yeah. They planned my coming without underneath their noses, and I was going to escape before 5. This is, I don't know, it was weird. It was a weird thing. So. Like a thief in the night. It's so surprising because it's apparent when I'm hanging out with everyone. It's apparent to me, you know. It's apparent to me that you know, it's like that old Procol Harum song, you know, "Shine On Brightly." It's different than the Pink Floyd one. Shine on brightly. It's already the case. You know? So let's read. This gets really interesting. Yeah, this is beautiful. So here, when one attempts to practice this conviction by putting attention on the feelings of being, or the sense of presence, let's say, yes? So what happens? Because the crease, I can't read it here. All right. So the thoughts and desires will initially continue to grow at their normal rate. But if this attention is maintained over a period of time, the density of thoughts, this is beautiful, the density of thoughts decreases, and in the space between them emerges the clarity. The stillness and the peace of pure being. Occasionally this stillness and this peace will expand and intensify until a point is reached where no effort is needed to sustain the awareness of being. So it gets established, yeah? The attention merges imperceptibly with the being itself. So the attention and the interest finds its own home. And the occasional stray thoughts no longer have the power to distract. They come, but in other words, you'll still hear them, but you won't be listening to them. It's different, yeah? You'll hear the thoughts because you're awake, but you won't listen to them because you're awake. And I'm saying you already is. In other words, the solution is already applicable, it's already there, and all you need is acquiesce, and in time you'll see it play out. When this point of surrender has been reached, all the ignorant misperceptions which constitute the illusory self have disappeared. But this is not the final state of realization, because the misconceptions are only in suspension, and sooner or later they can emerge again. This is what happens when people say they woke up and then they lost it. Yeah? They said, I had it and then I lost it. Have you ever heard that at meetings like this? People said, I had an awakening, but somehow I lost it. I don't know where I put it or whatever. You know what drawer it's in, I don't know. I thought I had it in the spiritual drawer, but maybe it's in the sock drawer. I don't know, but I've lost it. Will someone help me? You know? So, He says, Ramana has stated that the final definite elimination of ignorance is a matter for self, the big S, spirit, grace. Yeah? So in other words, this can only be carried certain point, and then grace is the rest. Grace is the bridge. So, but this is not the final state of the issue. Ramana stated the final definite elimination of ignorance is a matter for spirit, let's say, or grace. He says that effort can only take one to a certain point, and then the grace takes over and takes one to the goal in the case of surrender. The initial effort is the shifting of one's attention from the world of thoughts to the feeling of being. When there is no attention on it, the mind subsides, revealing the being from which it came. Then in some mysterious way, the spirit eliminates the residual ignorance and realization dawns. Ramana summed it up all very neatly when he said, just keep quiet and Bhagavan will do the rest. Or like Ramana is famous for saying, to know God is to be God. So to know God is to be God. In the mental state, to know God is to become a knower of God. That ain't it. Right? To know God is to be God. Yeah. So, it's extremely relevant. What is this? The shifting of attention is the ultimate act of surrender. It is an acknowledgement that the mind, its concepts and desires are all ignorance, and that involvement in and attachment to the ignorance is all that prevents a full awareness of reality. So we're devoted to the thoughts, basically, because we believe them, they're ours or they're about us. That's how it worked with me. To me, the solution was a loss of interest in the systems that are supporting the fallacy of being a self. Yeah? Self cannot stand on its own merit because it doesn't have any merit. Yeah? There is no self. So it stands on a claiming or an acquiring or a commandeering of a lot of faculties, like feelings, thoughts, actions, perceptions, and by claiming them, it makes up a story that these perceptions imply there's a seer and a seen, that these thoughts imply there's a thinker and a thought about, these feelings imply that there's someone who's having the feelings, and the actions are implying a doer. That's the bondage of self. Yeah? The bondage of self is an activity. It was never an event. It never happened. It can only seem to continually happen. It never happened. You and I have never been bound. In a sense, therefore, there's no need to be free because we already are. The only idea of bondage is a seemingly so. It has to have you believing in it to appear to be so. If your believing in it is withdrawn, you'll see it as false evidence appearing real. You'll just see it as false evidence. Yep. Now, you're hearing them, you're not listening to them. Now the pause becomes the center of direction instead of the thoughts. The silence becomes the center of direction instead of the thoughts. You're led, in a sense, you're lived by, you're drug-driven, you're navigated by another modality. And then you'll know the difference by the fruits. To me, it's stabilized as a traveling lighter here in this life for a long time now. And surprisingly, to the mental state, it didn't change the geography of my life, but it allowed me to travel lighter over it all. You know, the blissful ideas that I'll always be happy every second of the day or blissed out and nothing will ever happen to me ever again was just magical thinking, rooted in magical thinking, yes? This is definitely what's going to happen to the action figure is going to happen, but you'll travel lighter through it. Yes? You'll hear the thoughts, maybe, and you won't hear a lot of them because they get diminished, but you won't listen to them. Yeah? Thoughts will not comply with an action. They'll just be thoughts seen, and they actually be used to say one thing, I'm not that. Yeah? So if you need a reminder, your own perceptions will be reminding you all day because you're constantly being seeing things that cannot be perceiving. Yeah? So instead of laying the emblem of authority onto this, you'll suspend that little coronation and the real king will appear. Fortunately, there won't be much fanfare. No one may not even notice. Haven't you seen the change in me? No, I haven't. You're the same asshole Paul I've known for 20 years. Nothing's changed? No. Because people are going to keep seeing you as they see you. Yeah? You're an object. This is always going to be a you to you. Yeah? I beg to differ and say it's me, but in fact, you'll never see me as a me. You'll always see it from a me and see this as a you. Yeah? That was my big problem when I got to programs in recovery, because while they knew exactly what the you needed, which was like big boot up its ass, I kept begging to differ because it's me. I don't belong here, really. I'm not like every one of the other clients, you know. I'm fucking supremely different. No, you're not. You're a run-of-the-mill junkie, and we know exactly what you need to do to get some relief, and it worked. And all the while I was contesting and arguing, because it's me. Don't you see? I'm different.
Special.
Don't you see? You've never had the thoughts I've had. Never. You've never felt like I have. I know you've never done the heinous things I've done. There's no way I can be helped because you can't understand. That's what happened when I went to AA first. Going to AA, had a real thick shell of terminal uniqueness. Unbelievable. I really, man, I was like living in an M&M. You know what I mean? The chocolate had melted and I was in a sea of fucking shit with a big casing around me. I couldn't break through part of the M, you know? It's me, M and M and M and M and M and M, me. They didn't see the E that was really small. They had the big M, but there was an E right behind it. Me. So I'm sitting there, and, you know, at a meeting of recovery, people share. They share their feelings, their thoughts, and their reactions to life. So I was sitting there for a couple of months, taking it in. And then I came to two conclusions after a few months of listening. I said, how did these people get my thoughts, or they're not my thoughts? This was a great revelation. Because as soon as I saw that the thoughts may not possibly be mine, I needed the crutch of calling them alcoholic thoughts, but it allowed me to discern that they weren't mine. That I was not the doer of those thoughts, because how could everyone else have the same ones? How could you call something mine if everyone has it? Yeah? So this was an incredible, it produced so much space. It didn't produce it, allowed so much space to get between what I am and who I thought I was. Instead of having who I thought I was pasted on what I am, it was moved out so I could get a sense of what I am by seeing what I wasn't. Yeah? So the first signal of that was seeing thoughts and calling them alcoholic thoughts. And then I started to get relief from them. And why stop there? Because people were sharing their feelings. They sure sounded like my feelings. And they had done the heinous things I'd done, and worse things. So I realized, Jesus Christ, I have like a fucking foreign installment. I've got like a spacesuit helmet on that's broadcasting the same Mars to everybody. We're on this imaginary journey. We haven't left like Jim's garage, but we got this virtual reality, and we see the strange Mars, and no one else in our family can see it's Mars, but other alcoholics can see it's Mars. Yeah, you see, that's why we drink. It's, look at that. Oh, I know, it's fucking terrible. The visor we never even feel around for the visor. I gotta get help in here. Well, just go to, oh, what? Oh, yeah. What? I can unscrew this? What? Yeah. Oh, okay, sorry. See what happens if you have what you call problems, the mental state's quite invested in them. The story is you do anything to get out of them, but you actually won't. Because the mental state's mining it. It's got gold in those hills. It has gold in resentments. It gets to be right about a lot of shit, yeah? It's got its own agenda that we're not privy to, yeah? It'd rather be right and alone than be happy, joyous, and free. I swear. Yeah, because look at when someone who's an addict, where they end up. They end up fucking alone and they're right. And it does them absolutely no good. So you think that's the only addicts there are alcoholics and drug users? This mental state is addicted to the idea of being self. It's addicted to it. You don't need 5,000 thoughts a day to navigate a day in Toronto.
Really?
Really? You don't need 3,000 thoughts. You don't need even maybe 100 thoughts. There's a lot of thoughts going on because they're being used to constantly imply that you're the thinker. And because it isn't so, it has to work overtime to appear to be so. It has to use whatever it can to use that to infer that there's someone there, for there to be the feeling or sense that there's someone there. It has to be generated. It can't generate itself. It doesn't have its own engine. It needs our interest and attention. It's like sneaking up on the side of our car and siphoning the gas as we're sitting there, to fuel its little trip. And yet we're usually lovingly giving it over. I mean, who would you follow thoughts about that go 5 years back? Maybe your kids, that's about it. If you knew these thoughts were about Stanley, there's no fucking way you would be sitting here all day worrying or concerned about what happened to Stanley 5 years ago. There's no freaking way. But you'll keep going down however long the path is if you're at the end of it. Now, if you're the pot of the gold at that fucking mental rainbow, you're on it. You're sitting here thinking, going over, my whole life would have been different if I would have turned left on Richmond that day. But I went to Sabadina, and if I met that guy that I married and got divorced, and now I'm stuck with alimony, and Jesus Christ, on and on. And it's just entrancing, isn't it? Because why? If you saw someone else having the same thoughts and they try to share with you, you'd be bored stiff in a minute. But it's about you. The whole magic of it is it's about you. We used to have that old one, a story of having a movie, like if we had a marquee for tonight only. Yeah? So I bet you like maybe 40 Pauls would come. I had one of those events or whatever, and I was leading a lot of workshops in recovery from a book of AA and on a chapter called How It Works, and I did it every week. These 4-step workshops. Yeah? And I had read it over and over again for years, a lot of years. And then my mind moved, and I looked at the same words, but a whole different download happened. And it was this one statement that got me. It said, being convinced, which means to believe with certainty, being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us. So in this statement, we're the us, and then there's this foreign installment, or a parasitical movement, or a mental preoccupation, however you want to name it, if you need to name it at all. Let's just say a mental movement, an incessant mental movement, yes? That has manifested in many ways to defeat us. If we're clear about that, let's look at its common manifestations. Why? So that we can recognize what's defeating us. Yeah? And so in AA, the next paragraph, it says resentment is the #1 offender. It kills more alcoholics than anything else. Resentment, which is to re-feel something. Yes? So something that happens reminds you of something that you thought happened in the past, and you get angry. And then you get pissed at that person or that thing. Okay? So now, the way it says it, that resentment is a manifestation of self, yes, in one's life. And that manifestation can defeat us. We're distinctly different. Their self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us. Okay? Let's look at some of its common manifestations. Resentment is one of them, fear is another, and acting out to get what you want is another one. We start with those. There's plenty more. Yeah? Okay? And it says, okay, now, looking at it let's look at its manifestations, and the first one we'll look at is resentment. And yet, most people who get to that page and start looking at it, when they see the resentment and they start looking at the resentments, they call them their resentments. They say, these are my resentments. And then, okay, they move to the fear. They're not seen as fear, they're seen as my fears. Yeah? Yet it says they're manifestations of self. And we're us. In other words, we're not saying anything, but we're not self. Yeah? Yet we're claiming the expressions of self as ours. That's the act of being identified as what you're not. Yes? So we're claiming thoughts that are not ours to be ours. We're claiming feelings that are not ours to be ours. We're claiming perceptions that are not ours to be ours. We're claiming time to be ours. We're claiming bodies to be ours. We're claiming girlfriends and boyfriends to be ours. We're claiming property to be ours. And yet none of us have anything in a sense. But the claiming of being the one who has it is the act of being bonded to self. So it's not about getting rid of the thoughts, it's about seeing, has there ever been a thinker? It's not about, I gotta change my feelings, it's about realizing they're not your feelings. And you know what will happen? They'll change in and of themselves. They all have a quality that we're stunting, and that quality is to come and go. They come and go. What's holding them in orbit is our gravitational pull. The addiction, the belief that they're about us, keeps them revolving around us. This little idea begets tons of other ideas. It's like a barnacle can't find any anchor except on a rock or on a thing. And then it gets covered with barnacles, and then the barnacles seem to bother you. So what you want to do is get some of the barnacles removed. But the fact is, just remove the rock and the barnacles have no place to grab onto. The mental idea of you being a someone is the rock that all this shit's growing on. Just like if you had a waterway, there's the current of the water. You want to change the current of water, put something in it, like a rock. Then some of the water starts going around the rock, and some of the water is carrying a leaf, and the leaf gets stuck on the rock, and then more shit gets stuck, and twigs, and after a while, the water isn't even watering anymore. It's stagnant, and it's got this cover on it. It's got leaves and shit all around it, and it's all coagulated around one fucking thing, the rock. That's what it is like to be identified as a body. The thoughts find a home. The feelings get stuck. All this stuff starts growing on you, and you grow stories, and you grow mutations of neuroses, and you grow anxiety, and you grow mental illnesses, and you grow the inability to be right where you are. You'll grow the strength of what's not happening will start becoming what's happening. What's not happening will override what's happening. This Saturday will be overridden by what happened last Wednesday for you, or what you're afraid will happen next week. It'll override every day you're in, the possibility of another day. You'll be totally displaced when it's an impossibility for you to be displaced, yet you'll seem to be displaced. And then you'll yearn for a feeling of being open, and you'll yearn for this moment, and you'll yearn for the presence. But every time you entertain it from selfing, it'll be a conceptual idea you're trying to grab. You want to look like you're awake. You want to feel like you're present. The presence is our inherent absence. Inherent absence. Nothing has to disappear us. We've never fucking appeared. We're just seeming to appear. There's only one reality. There's only reality, and we're that. And through identification as what we're not, we're lending reality to all these freaking things. And then those things bite us in our unreal fucking ass. And then we find someone else that is bit, and we have a commiseration with them, with big phone bills, and we get to be right. Do you know who did? Oh yes, I do. I've done it myself. such a blast to have a good, some good news, yeah? That there's not even a need for a solution. It must be 4 now, eh?
Letting go. When to let go, just to be, to let go.
Yeah?
Can you explain that a little more?
Well, let's take it a step back. Is there anyone holding on?
There's something holding on. I don't know what it is. It's not really in anyone.
Well, let's just say, perhaps it's not you.
Yeah, I don't think it's me.
So then, you never held on.
Yeah, it doesn't
So
seem-
therefore, there's no need to let go.
Uh,
You see where the surrender is? The surrender is surrendering the idea that there's anyone to surrender. You see? You see how this all works? It's trying to take us a step farther back that we're not used to. Because the mental dance has its own rhythm and it has a beginning and end. And its logic is, if there's a noting of an action, there must be an actor. If there's a noting of a thought, someone must be thinking it. If there's a feeling, someone must be having it. This is this logical reaction, yeah, of a very illogical system. It's totally insane, and it's a failed system. So what we want to do is, there is a huge business based on letting go. We're trying to preempt everything by going to, has there been any holding on actually? Is there anyone holding on? Yeah. Because once you let go, you'll find that you're holding on again, sooner or later, yes? And then now you're in the business of letting go, based on the premise that you can hold on. You see? So the business thrives because the initial miscue isn't being noticed. There's an assumption there's you that's holding on, there's something that's holding on, and it's either some distant cousin or it's you somehow. You have some kind of alliance with it. Therefore, it's dictating how it's like to be holding on, and letting go, it seems like to be the right appropriate move in that dance. Yeah. But it's the escape from the whole dance. Not that you learn better moves, because you'll be tap-toe and tap dancing the rest of your fucking life. You'll go through tons of shoes. You know what I mean? This is like going prior. What the hell? Who came up with the idea that you're holding on? Is there anyone holding on? You see? That's where it is. The freedom is prior to the bondage. Letting go is after the bondage. So you're seemingly bound to something, and now you want to let it go. So that's a mental reaction to the false idea of being bound. The strategy, if I'm bound, is to let go of what's binding me. It sounds great, yeah? But what happens is it promotes finding or realizing something else is being held on to, which may take longer to let go. And then there's the big ones I didn't even know I was holding on to. That's maybe a lifelong process of letting these go, yes? It goes, one begets the other. The holding on begets the letting go begets the holding on. We want to sort of cut that dualistic chain from getting any linkage. And it's not about cutting it after the necklace has already been formed. You want to get it before the clasp has been locked on your throat. You want to see it, and see it for what it is, which has nothing to do with you. So the relief from letting go is from realizing there's no one that's held on. Yeah? Then the necessity to let go is dismissed. What do you get left with? A lot of time and a lot of fucking relief. Jesus Christ, don't have to go through that process again and again and again. And what happens? People like the process. They feel good when they let go. So they busily go into and study other places they're holding on to. Yeah? And it looks like, oh, I found a historical thing I've been holding on to. You know when that arose? Right at that moment you found it. And it had tons of volume stuck to it. As soon as you imagined the cover, the whole book appeared. We conjure up history. The mental state can't gather enough relevance out of this moment. It has to find relevance in your lengthy appearance in the past and your future prediction of being in the future. Yes? So, go prior to what's letting go. See if there's ever been the holding on. Yeah. If it's not you that's holding on, why are you beholden to the endeavor of letting go? Maybe you let go of the idea that you're holding on. Yes? You let go of the idea that you ever held on. And that's that. It cuts the whole fucking chain of cause and effect, cause and effect. Letting go, holding on, letting go, holding on. Yeah? This is what we're attempting to do. Throw a wrench in the works. Derail the train. Not learn how to slow it up, not learn how to put bigger windows in it and maybe better scenery, but actually don't get on the train. Then you don't need to have strategies. How am I going to get off a 30-mile-per-hour moving train? It's probably going to hurt. It probably will. But what happens if you realize you never entered the train? Then you don't have to prepare for where you know you're going to end up on the train because you ain't going there. Yeah? It abrupts everything. Timelessness is the solution. Timelessness is the solution of every problem in time. Timelessness is the solution to it. Yeah? Most of the stuff that's bothering us comes from what's not happening, literally. It's being brought up through thought, yeah? Through recollection, through memory, to become something to us right now so that we can use that problem to be a reflection of the one who has the problem. That's all it's being used for. Everything that's arising is being used to be a reflective surface that we can see ourselves in. This is the obsession, the addiction to selfing. That's what it is. If you leave it alone, it comes and goes. But if you have a mental use for it, yeah, you'll put it to use and it will enslave you in a sense. Only seemingly so, but it will seem as real can be because it's the reality that's playing the role. Thank God it's over for her. She let go. She finally let go. She gets a book, a free book. See how easy it is? Who wants to be next? Come up here. Step right up. I got a plan for you.